Have you been considering starting a private podcast or jumping into the private podcast arena? So today's guest we have Miss Lindsay Padilla, who is one of the founders of Hello Audio, a platform that focuses on private podcasting. I have been a member and a fan for many, many, many years, and we are jumping in all about why you need private podcasts in your business, how you can use it, why she decided to create this platform, and how you can benefit from it, and your audience and your clients and your potential leads and your potential clients can benefit from you incorporating audio into your business through private podcasts. So thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show.
What's up? I'm Angie, and you are listening to Podcast That Pays, the podcast for online business owners who want to grow their business and sell their offers using podcasting. If you like no fluff, tell it like it is advice from a marketing-loving podcast agency owner, you are in the right place. So glad you're here. Let's dive in. Thank you, Lindsay, for being here. I love to see you and chat with you anytime I get the opportunity. And I just want to start out. I'm not going to start with a tell me about yourself, boring, long, drawn out. But here's my question. Why audio?
Because you could do other things while you're listening to it. I think that's the easiest answer. So it's something that we all have habits around. So for people that have been listening to podcasts for a long time, I'm getting ready. I'm going to throw on a podcast because I have to look in the mirror. I can't watch a video, right? Or I'm going on a walk. I'm not going to be a weirdo looking at my phone, walking. I'm getting in the car, right? So add the list. We just have such limited time in our day to consume content. And yeah, it might be while we're binging a Netflix show, we're scrolling, but those other times of the day, I don't have time for that, right? So audio just fits in these other places where I can kind of get other stuff done.
Yeah, it's one of the big reasons why I was so drawn to it too, and why I love it, and why I think it's really good for your business. I was just on a call, and one of my clients, we were talking about one of my first private podcasts that I created called We All Hate Webinars. And she was talking, we're creating a private podcast for her. And she was like, well, what's the format that I should lay it out if I want to do this for my private podcast? And I was like, you could go listen to my, I created this private podcast in 2021 or something like that. I was like, you listen to We All Hate Webinars. And she started laughing because of the name. And I was like, it's kind of true. We do. And I was like, and we still do. And I created it because I hated sitting through webinars. And then we started talking, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever sat through a full webinar. Ever in my life. And matter of fact, if I ever have to watch a video for something, or even listening on podcast, I have to listen to it on 3-4 times speed, the fastest as humanly possible, so that while I'm sitting and consuming it, it's going fast because I cannot sit through them. So that was really what was behind. I'm like, we're sick of sitting through these boring webinars. They're hard to consume. It doesn't come, I can't take it along with me. I can take audio wherever I go. If I'm on the train, or if I'm cooking dinner, or I listen to it when I'm on a walk. Walking and podcasting goes hand in hand, and listening to audio goes hand in hand, by the way. So I listen to audiobooks and podcasts on my walk. That's my routine. And I love that you said that too. It becomes a part of people's routine. So from a creator, from a business owner's perspective, how cool is that you get to become part of someone else's routine? You get to be, it is really so intimate and weird because you're sitting at home recording your podcast, and you're not interacting with them, but then from the listener's perspective, it's super intimate. So I love that you brought that up as well. So tell me, how do you use Hello Audio in your business? I know you have a whole podcast about how other people are using it.
Yeah.
How do you use it, Lindsay?
Yeah, and it's dangerous. That podcast is dangerous because I walk away and I'm like, why don't we have this yet? Like, why don't we have an onboarding private podcast? Like, nope, we do it like old school SaaS companies. So I'm not going to lie. Our list is long as well, inspired by our users, of course. But I think one of the early things, and I'll say too, we'll have a meeting and we'll be talking about the next marketing thing. And we're like, it takes us a while. We're planning. Oh, this should be a private podcast. It's like silly that we even have to kind of unlearn some of the tactics, I guess, and like the kind of go-to marketing. It even impacts us, right? As people who literally do this every single day. But of course we have stuff, right? So, and we recently launched our first public podcast, and that was in, I think it was like September-ish of 2023. And so we're, a couple months into that. And, we didn't do that right away because we kind of focus on private podcasts. So we didn't feel like we had to rush to do a public one. But I think one of the first podcasts we created was based on a challenge we did for Black Friday, like the first Black Friday we ever had, which is also the same month that we had like we first launched subscriptions. And we kind of, I think it was called, it might have changed the name, but it was like Audio Asset Challenge or something like that. We were like, hey, you scrambling to get a Black Friday offer together. Audio is the easiest and fastest way to get an asset created. So we ran it live and then flipped it into an evergreen private podcast. And that was a lead magnet for a while. So I think that's like the first private podcast we ever did. But I will also say the first one that I did as kind of CEO, we knew partnerships and affiliates were going to be a big part of growing Hello Audio early on. So I actually spent a long time creating kind of, I don't know if you guys all know the old school Russell Brunson days of like Dream 100, but who would we love to promote Hello Audio, right? And we went after big names, and I essentially made a private podcast for every single one of those people. We scripted it out, and then I recorded kind of, 3 or 4 of the episodes were the same for everyone for the most part. And then I was able to use something like Descript and changed, the outreach to say the person's name and the content and way they could use it in their businesses. And I think we literally mailed a box with headphones that said Hello Audio, like not AirPods, but like cheap ones that you could get printed. And then, kind of said like press play and like, here's, the podcast to listen to it. And so that was like, I'm pretty sure that was the first private podcast really that we created. So we made over like 50, I think we did like 50 something of that. And then lucky for us too, like Clubhouse was in that time too. So like audio was really big. So being able to reference that too. And then when we raised our first round, I basically sent all investors I was messaging a private podcast, like, hey, like, right. And I'd be like, it was so nice to meet you. Like, here's the pitch if you want to listen to it again. Like, and so we like very early on, it was very one-on-one. So there's, I have a lot of feeds in my account of like these old feeds of people that we reached out to. So kind of cool old history there with Hello Audio.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the earliest ones were like individual feeds for
Yeah.
like one person.
Oh, I love that. And now I'm like, dang it, I got to do
Right?
some individual.
Yeah, it's fun. And like with things like Descript, and now they have the AI and the overdub,
So
you can
easy.
actually switch it pretty easily. And that's what's the cool thing I think about audio is it's actually really easy to kind of switch out stuff. I find it way easier than video. I know there's like AI video, but like, come on, guys. It looks creepy. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that individual touch I think was really good too. So
Oh, I love that. Okay. I did create, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this on your podcast or not, or any of the conversations that we have, but something I did create was a private podcast called In Case You Still Need Convincing. It's literally like, if you're thinking about working with me, here's this private podcast where I walk you through what it's like behind the scenes. You hear from my team, you hear from my like testimonials from my clients, like what that process is like. Like I'm like you, I have a lot of feeds. Everything that's how it happened on this call today. Someone's creating a video podcast and we were just talking about something else. And I'm like, I think you should create the behind the scenes of creating this video podcast show in a private podcast. the opportunities and the ideas
Yes.
are endless, which I know that you're seeing through your podcast, and it is dangerous
Hmm.
because I'm like, oh my God, I could do a private podcast for this. Like I could do a private podcast for this. And it is easy to your point, be able to kind of switch things out. And I know that I've pulled brand new private podcasts together, even with content from old private podcasts and made a new one. And like, so it is, I don't know. I still get tons of people signing up to my private podcast as a lead magnet, which it is really effective. It's one of my favorite things to do. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on and why I'm going into like, I think we need to do another round of private podcast week.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about this again because I haven't talked about it in a long time and I get so many questions. So
I'm gonna say too, like I'm feeling it this year. Like I remember in 2023, the predictions, people were like, private podcast, private podcast. It takes a while. Like this is a new thing. Like I just met with a business owner. He like helps other SaaS companies. So he's not like really in our space, but he's an online marketer, like hands down. And he's like, we're going over our product. He's helping us with some onboarding stuff. And he's like, I actually am not totally sure what a private podcast is. The amount of times I have to explain that is also showing me that like people who even know what that is are very innovative. Like it's an early adopter thing, like you for sure, an early adopter. And there's a lot of education around it still. And even as experimental as our users are, they go out there, they try things, whatever. We're not sure like what to call it or how your audience is going to respond. And everyone's audience is a little bit different, obviously their niche and what they know. But I am starting to see like there's a swell and more people are talking about it in a different way. And I think I'd obviously like to credit ourselves with that. But when we first built Hello Audio in the early days of like 2020, I remember just being like, I just wish a podcast was expected and like in every single course. Like that would make me so happy because that is it. That is like the bottom line for me. It's like, can I just listen to this? Like, why am I watching your face right now when it has nothing to do with what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And so that was always like our goal was how we could make it just more ubiquitous in like content. Even just like the simple, like dump your videos that recorded for your courses. And now as it's expanded and just like the potential, I think it is getting more popular where people are like, oh, wait, I could have a lead magnet that I record once and like people actually do something with it. I think that's like a pretty big deal. And so I'm starting to feel that swell. I just kind of jumped back onto Threads recently and like there's some fun conversations of it. I literally tagged you in something, by the way. And of course, Threads is showing me all the content around podcasting, but there's a lot of people talking about private podcasting right now. And I'm like, okay, like I see you. There's a woman, Brenna McGowan. She's doing something called Behind the Launch. But funny side story, she's been doing it for 3 years. And we've been around that long. And some of our early users were like, she was doing Voxer interviews, which that podcast that we created, that's one I didn't mention. That's our most popular lead magnet now is the Success Stories podcast. And it's like, it's the easiest thing to share with somebody who's curious about private podcasting because they experience it and they get to hear from real users. But I carried those interviews completely async. You were one of them over Voxer and then threw them into a private podcast. So here she is doing like an audio type summit and had MP3s for people to download or like a player or something. And she finally did a private podcast this year. She said the first year she did it, no one said anything about private podcasts. She goes, the second, everyone was like, why isn't this a private podcast? And she's like, I don't know. This year she's getting so much more engagement. Like people are listening. They love the delivery method. They're all asking about how she's doing it. And, it's not even what the topic is. It's just that idea of people expecting that MP3 and that audio to be accessible, not a player on a website where my phone has to be open or not an MP3 I have to download and like, I don't know, it disappears on your phone. Like, where does it even go?
Where does it go? Where does it go?
Totally.
I love that. I remember back then when the messaging was largely around, you need to have this for your course, like as a companion for your course, like to make it more.
It was called podcast your course when we did like live
I didn't even,
launch licenses. Mhm.
I didn't know that, but I remember the messaging being largely around that, and I think it is so freaking cool, and I'm guessing you guys think it's so freaking cool at how your users have taken that and been so I mean, you obviously made a whole podcast about this now, but have been so innovative in what they're creating with it, and that has got to feel both inspiring and, like, really cool to see how now you get to build off all these ideas that people are doing. Like, okay, now, I see people are using like this. How can we build in our product to support
Yes.
that? And so
Yes.
I love that. I love that journey for you guys. But speaking of that journey, where did this come from? What made you want to start Hello Audio?
Yeah. I mean, because I taught people how to make courses. Like my past is as a professor. And so it was always like, yeah, have the MP3 under the video file, right? Like in the module. And then you're like, oh, no one's listening to that, right? But you didn't really think about it. You're like, as long as I offer it, it's fine, right? Like I'm touching all bases of the learner, right? So coming from a teacher, it's not like I came up with the idea and was like, how can I make audio learning better? In fact, it was flipped. I was a student in a woman's course who, God bless her, like put it on YouTube private, like in a WordPress login. Like she wasn't even using anything like Thinkific or Teachable or anything. And I think that actually is what made it even more annoying was that it's not even mobile friendly, the site, and you're trying to log in. Literally the most annoying thing. And I'll be honest about the topic. It was like money manifestation and stuff. There's no slides. Like she's a really good
Yeah.
lecturer, really good orator, gets you inspired, like wants you to go make money. That's what it was about. And I'm like, I remember going on a walk. We lived downtown at the time in San Diego and being like, I'm so annoyed that I can't just like listen to her and go on a walk because it's like this weird WordPress site and it's a YouTube video. Like, what the heck? And I had the prequel to that is because I'm sure everyone feels like that, even still, right? Without even knowing Hello Audio exists, they still have that thought. For me, what made it real was I was starting to see people talk about it. I was in a membership site Facebook group. And I think it was Kate Northrup, really, who had a membership. And she said her husband wrote a script to prevent the podcast from being public for her members. And I told Derek, and I was like, that's a really good idea. And I was like, and I think, I don't know exactly the order that happened, where I had that thought and I was in her course. And then maybe I saw the post, or I saw the post. And then I was like, I think it might have been I saw the post and then was like, yeah, this should be in a podcast. Like that, like podcast has already figured that out. And so the first instinct was, do we write a script as course creators and tell people that this is what they should be doing? Like, right? But
Yeah.
if you like think about that, what is not good about that is that shareable, like that link. If you write, I think the husband created a script that generated a unique RSS feed for every student, which is essentially what Hello Audio does.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's no login. So we're like, do we teach people how to do this? Or like, do we have to actually make it? And so just that vibe of like memberships having a podcast, I think possibly Brooke Castillo also had some sort of WordPress thing happening. Again, not podcast host. They were hosting their own video files and delivering it. And so, and then we start doing research as I come up with that idea and we're like, what should we do? And Libsyn apparently at that time had a private podcast. But you had to email them, and it was like only in enterprise would they do that, as if they were treating it like a corporate thing.
Yeah.
And so that summer, so this is all 2019, early 2019. That summer, my husband's a big like research nerd. He's not like our technical co-founder per se. He can't like code, but he can code a little bit. He can't like make something. I think he's getting better now, but he definitely couldn't just go make the product. He went and did some research, and he's like more of a deep researcher, and I'm more like, let's launch this. I don't know what it is, but let's go, right? And he comes back, like mid early summer, and was like, I think we have to build it. And so the second he said that, I'm like, great, we're selling lifetime licenses. I'm going to make a post. But we knew we could sell lifetime licenses and still actually deliver it similarly to what Kate Northrup and her husband figured out with their scripting. We could do that. So you would send us your files in a Google Drive folder and we would make your podcast feed for you. It was not a SaaS product. And so it allowed people to still get that experience while we decided how to develop it. And so I think I made that post in mid-August, something like that. And then by October, I think Transistor was announcing their private podcasting. And so it was starting to be like this more common thing. And that was the scariest part, to be fair, about launching a product, because lots of people were like, well, like, why isn't every podcast host just going to create private podcasts, And so we thought about that. And we're like, yeah, but they're going to do it for podcasters and they're going to do it within the system that they've already built. We're creators. Like, I need 50 videos uploaded at once and turned into a feed instantly. I don't need a weekly, individual upload situation. That's how I create content. So that was what kind of gave us the impetus to keep going, was like, oh, we're building it for us, right? Creators can be podcasters, but not all podcasters are creators or create content like we do. And so for me, I was like, no one's going to build it. No one's going to build it with private podcasting first. And to this day, right, I would be asked by investors, what if Apple comes out with it? What if Spotify? Guess what? They both have it. Guess what? It's all about memberships and $5 off your public podcast. Not what we do. And so go ahead, make it more common, make it more available, but that's going to be our bread and butter. And we're still to this day, the only podcast hosting company that's very private podcast first and public second for sure. And we knew if we just focused on that, that's our positioning in the market. And then, of course, Kajabi starts to come out with it. And I remember that day, it was in 2021. And I was like, oh my God, this is the end, right? But Kajabi, I hands down believe Kajabi created that because of us. I do not believe there was someone on their team that came up with that. I believe that there were people asking them to have it. And so they built it. And then Searchy was the other one. And so there are a couple, learning management systems that have private podcasting. But again, I mean, you're Kajabi. You have so many things that you're doing. The last thing you're worried about is private podcasts and what they can do. So to your point, us listening to our users and the way they want to build products with it, that's what we focus on. Whereas Kajabi, they have so many other things to do. And so at the end of the day, Kajabi's making it more common. And we have lots of people that have both Kajabi and Hello Audio because Kajabi doesn't do what Hello Audio does.
Hey.
Yeah, lots of people.
I have Kajabi and Hello Audio and Captivate. And I get asked the question so many times. It's I already have this, in my host, and they say they do a private feed. So can't I just do it there? And I'm like, absolutely not. Sorry, you have to go to Hello Audio. And this is what you have to do. This is for marketers. This is for people who are creating. And this is my spill, exactly what you said. I'm like, and also the folks over at Hello Audio are always working to make things better. They are always they have a great community. You can go in, you can ask questions, you can go and be inspired by what all these different people are doing. So absolutely not. You're not going to go on, Captivate or Kajabi and try to create a private feed.
I mean, Kajabi charges per product. They count a private podcast as a product. So they don't even look at it as part of your course. It's a whole
I didn't
thing.
even know that they had private podcast capabilities, FYI. I did see the regular podcast, and I actually, one of my clients just switched to their podcast over to Kajabi, which I love Captivate for a regular podcast, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I didn't even know they did the private podcast at all. But I always recommend everyone, as you know, I've been an affiliate for a few years. And so it's built into my workflow. I'm like,
how to pitch Hello Audio separately from Captivate.
It's here's my workflow. In step 2, go to Hello Audio and sign up for your account here. There's no options. We go to Hello Audio. So I love that. I obviously I've never heard your origin story, or we've never talked about it. And so I love how it has all come together. It's super interesting.
Hey, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I really need to up my podcasting game, or you want to start utilizing your show more for your business to get more leads and sell more offers, then I want you to come over to podcastthatpays.com and check out the Podcast Collab Lab. That's podcastthatpays.com and check out what we're doing over there. I would love you to join us. Okay, back to the show.
So I'm curious. A lot of people who listen to my podcast, everybody who listens to my podcast is also a business owner. And just from a running a business perspective, what has this build been like from a business perspective? Like, what are I guess if I could get more specific, what would be the big lessons or what you wouldn't do again or what you would do again kind of thing?
Oh, I got this. Okay. So it's interesting because I think I was, again, as you can tell from my story, it was like early 2020 when we actually started to build it. And we had some drama happen in the early days. But leading up to it, I think I was on the edge of like creator, like solopreneur burnout kind of thing where like all the content comes through me, right? Like I'm the creator, I'm the social media poster, I'm the teacher, I'm the this, I'm the that. And it was a lot. And so here I am about to build a SaaS, and I built a lot of relationships in that time and all related to the product. But I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be the face anymore. Like there's no, like, it's not like coming through me. It felt it's interesting because when you build something that is completely not your wheelhouse, that was like me up leveling instantly where, yeah, in my solopreneur business, I wore all the hats. There are a lot of hats in Hello Audio I cannot even touch. And one of them is coding, which is literally the product. Like the thing I sell, I can never fix. I can never go in and do it. Like I can't do anything. Like, so those early days was all about trusting the right people. And we made several missteps there. But when we finally landed on the developer who, pushed the thing to production, we knew we hit like something magical because, yeah, it was just like, it was beautiful because that trust was there and they were great at what they did and really cared about the product and our users. And they weren't like a founder. And so like what that means to me as somebody, I know that there are a lot of people kind of pivoting to SaaS right now, or it's kind of like in the world of like, hey, what if I created a SaaS product? And it's very possible. I think a lot of our frameworks and anything you keep in a spreadsheet and try to do something else with, like there might be a SaaS product there for sure. I would recommend finding a technical co-founder in the very early days. That is something that we've struggled with. And so what that means is, the person that built Hello Audio, we had to pay them, which of course you would expect, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
But in starting a tech company, there is this like, hey, you could give equity and you guys could join together on something and they could really care about the product. And like, if that's possible, there's not a lot of developers that are going to do development for equity. Like I'll say that flat out. However, they will do it like at a discount for equity, right? And if they like really believe in it. And so if there is a way that you can partner with someone. So a lot of the women that I've talked to that have ended up building SaaS companies kind of successfully, like Laura Roeder, who built Meet Edgar, built it off of her IP with social media back in the day. And her husband was a coder. So that was like such a great like way to get it going. Same with Access Ally. Her name is escaping me. But same thing. Her husband was a coder. And so, I wasn't married to a coder. Almost. I was like, you totally studied the wrong subject. But even still, just getting someone to buy in really early as a developer, even with paying them and all of that, and like you trust them, I mean, that's everything. Because once that person had to move on for various reasons, we've struggled with development since, and it's been our biggest cost to the detriment of our own salaries and all the things. So yeah, that's like my biggest learning, but it is possible. And I think what I like about our story is it's really that true. I'm solving a problem because I was solving my own problem kind of thing. Yeah. And we knew there was a lot of people that once they saw the potential in this, that they would want it. And We also knew the work that was ahead of us, like we talked about earlier, the innovation. It's like a new thing. It's definitely not something you have to be successful in business, right? Like we're not a bookkeeping software or something like that.
Right.
But we are a software that I think, as a creator right now and as an online business owner, it's pretty noisy out there. And so like doing another webinar just doesn't feel super exciting. And so we do offer definitely something that's for our users, for sure, the creator themselves, but also the listeners and their ease of use. And so when we saw that kind of two-pronged value prop that we gave people, we make our users look awesome to their audience for offering the private podcast feed and making it available. And then that kind of thing. Once we realize we're like, okay, we have something here. And, part of me thinks we got lucky, but another part of me is like, nope, it's one of those things where it was a good idea and we took a risk. There was a lot of unknowns. Like I said, people were throwing at us like, well, isn't everyone just going to add this to podcasting? And I was like, yeah, but they're not going to do it right. Like that I always knew in the back of my head. And so we had to trust ourselves there. And that's scary. I think as many people listening know, running your own business is a huge risk in a totally different way than having a corporate gig. And it has a huge upside, right? And so that's it. That's the gamble that we do every day. And so the gamble is working in our favor so far after lots of hard work. But it's just one of those things of like trusting yourself, even though there's a bunch of people telling you otherwise.
Yeah. Good call though, Lindsay, I will say, because no one has done it like you guys. Like, you were 100% correct, but you did not know that. And like those people who were questioning it, I mean, that's a valid thing to be questioning. Couldn't these other platforms that already do podcasting just add private podcasting? Lots of them have, but they just do not do it. Yeah. Most of them have, but they just do not do it in the same way, nor care about it. It's like the stepchild over here.
Yeah, they offer it.
Yeah, they offer it, but they don't. It's not anything useful. Like it's not anything useful. And so, and that's one of the other reasons why I always recommend Hello Audio to people, because you guys are like there with your users on a regular basis. So the way that you are able to like innovate and create and even going forward, the power in being able to be in that close proximity with your users still. And I just feel like that's such a great advantage. And so by you guys building community and being in your community, I just think that it's such an advantage for you and your business and what you're creating, because you're right there with your finger on the pulse of what people are needing or wanting. I mean, you could do a post right now in your community and be like, what do you wish Hello Audio had that it doesn't have? And then here you go. You'll have hundreds of ideas of things that you could expand on and create. And I'm sure that you guys will. And so that's why I'm always like, just get on the Hello Audio bandwagon. Okay. What would you say to anyone who is listening to this, or people who, and what I teach about private podcasts and how I use them in business? What would you say to people who are kind of, I don't know, maybe on the fence, or they're not sure about private podcasting, or they don't know what it can do for their business, or like, what would you say to those people who are thinking about like dipping their toe in it, but haven't jumped all the way in?
Yeah. You and I have been doing this a while. And we've been throwing lots of like new marketing stuff like constantly. And so I also say that with the real understanding that as a business owner, you have to have discernment to be like, this is what I'm working on. I'm not going to get sidetracked. So I want to say like, I see you and I am you. I get it.
Yeah.
And if you are feeling maybe a little less creative in your marketing, or like you haven't launched a new lead magnet in a hot second, or you haven't connected with your audience apart from maybe what you've been regularly doing, I do think that stepping or like dipping your toe into private podcasting, whether it be, and this is the cool part about private podcasting, it literally can go in any part of your business. It could go on the front end and get you more customers and clients and listeners and audience people and grow that. And it can take care of the people people who have invested in you, even if you're a one-on-one service provider, like, all the things. So the cool thing is you could probably, if you already have something you're selling and people own it and it's in video, you could probably whip up content-based like private podcast, no joke, in probably a half an hour by the end of, the upload. But what I like to inspire people to do is to kind of re-engage folks and like do things a little differently. And private podcasting makes that so much easier. It is not launch a YouTube channel. It is not even like, all the production tied to that. It's like a smaller commitment. And because it's audio, it's a lot easier. And so because there's so many use cases, I think the ability to sit and record in a day and literally document yourself doing it on stories and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Like, here I am in Descript editing it right now. Who wants it? That's how you start. That's it. And that is even showing you doing it from scratch. Like, you even brought up people redo their workshops, their webinars. You don't even have to make new content. But I just think if you're sitting on the fence, is this another one of those things? I'm seeing it everywhere. Am I like late to the game? I already have other things I'm working on. And part of me wants to go like, how excited are you about that? Right? Because I think in business, when we get that creative, tug of, ooh, I have an idea for this. Oh, but I said I would not do anything. Sometimes following those, and this is somebody with ADHD. So like fair, neurodivergent person who kind of just goes whatever she wants to do. But even still, following that energy usually leads to a better outcome. It leads to more signups. It leads to people being excited about it because guess what? You're excited about it. And I do think that a private podcast is easy to create, easy to get excited about, and easy to people to sign up for because it's not course workshops and all of that. So that's what I would say to people on the fence, that it's a lot easier than you think. And most of our users, without fail, would be like, wait, that's how easy it is when they start the process. Yeah, we've been telling you, like, it really is just drag it, drop it, becomes a podcast. Not kidding.
So no, it is really. It is really easy. And I will say to your point that is one of the reasons why I love podcasting in general, because the ease of use of it. Like, I don't have to get up. I don't have to get on video. I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to, I could just show up however, and I could get it done. I can have, and I have with my private podcast, I've recorded right from my phone. I've sat in my closet. I've sat there. I have an idea. I can go record 3 episodes and I can have a private podcast in a day, And so I think that from the creator side is really powerful, especially when you move quickly in business and you are that kind of person.
Momentum is everything for a business owner.
Yep. And so you're that kind of activator person who's like, okay, I got this idea. Let me put this out. I love that you can do it with so much ease. And then also, and this is something, because I get asked this a lot, and I'm sure that we probably share similar sentiments on this, but I get just the video podcast and like, do I need to have a video podcast and be on video and the video is going to replace the, audio? And I'm like, never. Look, never. Shaking your head. It's never going
to replace it. Yeah. I don't care how many Joe Rogans there are. Like, really don't care.
I do not care, because the nature of the platform and the reason why it's so powerful and the reason why it has gotten so much traction is because it's so accessible and easy to consume. And that is just period. And
why it hasn't changed in like 20 years,
it's
to be
not
honest, too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it. Like, there's people who want to do, my client earlier, she's like, I want to do the video because, you can do the video in the podcast app now. And I'm like, I actually just don't even see the additional value in that. Like, okay, do it if you want to, but I actually just don't think it's like that super valuable, to be honest. It's a cool thing. Like, when you
go to Amy Porterfield, go to Jenna Kusher, like, go to their podcast channels and look at it and just see those numbers. Like, you're gonna be like, oh, like, and these are people who have a reach, right? And like, yes, I will say there's changes coming to like video podcasts with like YouTube and how they're making, and Google making those changes. I think we're gonna see changes. But what's cool, to your point, because it's all about SEO and people finding you, now YouTube music or YouTube podcast, I guess is what, I don't know if it's podcast or music, You can like
Yeah.
import your RSS feed and it automatically updates. So Hello Audio, our Launch Your Private podcast is there. It just pulls in our cover art. People do listen to it. Like there is a population of people who use podcasts in Google, in YouTube, and with Google Podcasts going away, it's probably going to change. But to your point, they don't have to be video podcasts. That's not why they're listening. Yeah. The whole point is listening. So I think we're seeing a lot of the growth of video podcasts more for the repurposing reasons. Yeah. And I think it's a fair assessment. But when I look at things like what we're kind of talking about, things that can block you, that friction that can happen. And with you working with a lot of people wanting to just get their podcasts out there, it's 100%. Add that layer. That's like a whole nother layer of complication. And you're not going to be, the video editing of like, I don't know, whatever the cool kids watch or listen to these days, but like those podcasts that are so produced and they have studios and their guests fly there and see them. Let's just step back for a second and be like, let's realize where we're starting and where they started and recognize that like, that's helpful for them right now from a reach perspective, but it's probably not the starting point for you and it doesn't have to be. So I think thinking about it that way is important.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I'm always consistently, talking about is let's remove the barriers to getting started and doing video. I'm always telling people doing video and having guests are like two big barriers because guests is guests, that's why you're chuckling because like they're annoying. They don't show up sometimes. You have to reschedule, you have to find them, you have to it's a whole thing. You have to chase them about your given the bio, you have to fill this out. Yep. It's like a whole other thing, which is it's fine. But all of those things, when you're just starting with your concept and you're trying to bring something to light, like sticking with just audio is just the simplest way to get it done. And even to your point of being a course creator, you can remove the barrier of having to record a whole course 100%. And you could do it all audio. And
we're seeing, I want to talk about this because we're seeing, I think, again, the people that have been around for a while, we have this vision of what a course is supposed to look like and how many dollars you're supposed to get for that course, right? So it's $997, right? $1,000, $2,000, $2,500, $3,500. And I think there's this idea that like, well, if I don't do all this production, people are going to be like, well, why is this worth this much money? Right. And so I think we're breaking through that barrier. I think a lot of what's happening right now is ease, accessibility, completion, like those things are more important than production value. Like, sure, Amy Porterfield has beautiful worksheets, amazing video and all the things. And it's crazy because she teaches courses. And I know she says this, she does not expect the courses to look like that. But at the end of the day, she's still telling you like, this is how you sell a like $2,000 program, right? And so, and then we have people like Andrea Crowder, who we had on Launch Your Private podcast, who has almost $2 million business. Literally every single product she sells, besides her one-on-one services, even though she, of course, includes a private podcast for that, are all private podcasts. Like her entire programs. There is not a single thing that she doesn't sell that is in Kajabi or anywhere else. And the beauty of it is, and I watch her, go to her Instagram because she is selling all the time, constantly. But is she also creating new things constantly? And she completely credits that to Hello Audio and the ability to make audio and turn it and flip it quickly. She says she will have people, she'll speak, and she'll have her team members maybe make slides, and she will host programs live and include some, questions in a very chopped up way in the program. So like she will run like beta versions of the product, and she charges anywhere from, free, she sells free, right, as like sign up thing, all the way up to like literally every price point, what you would consider low ticket, mid-level that she puts a tripwire on every other thing she sells. And then all the way up to, I think, $3,000. It could be like $2,500. Purely audio. I think she's about to, I just saw her. She's about to promote her $2,500 program that is all audio. It's coming out right now again. And it's amazing. And that's what we envisioned when we built this. We're like, what if people just create audio products, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's still coming in. It's definitely not everybody. And I will say too, it's definitely not every subject. Like I do think like
Correct.
subjects need some level of video or whatever. So
Yeah.
because a lot of her work is in the coaching space, motivation, money, she does
Yeah.
team building, she does a lot of that kind of stuff. But she doesn't need slides to organize it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's a good speaker, right? And I think some of that plays in as well. But if that is you, you don't need any of that other shit.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see the reality of it. The value is not in the fact that it's in Kajabi or whatever. The value is what results are you getting people, right? Like, are they actually doing it? That was my big thing with course creation was, can you get your person to go through the content like that? That's why people hired me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I remember
it's
that.
funny. It's funny that I built this because, oh, that was all extra. Let's get it
Right.
down to what really matters. We're back to a lecture. We're back to someone talking and telling us what to do. So I just like to share that. So it is a lot easier production wise to record the audios and throw them up in Hello Audio. And you can totally have PDFs. You could totally link to stuff. But I think the friction, the way Andrea talks about it in that episode too, you brought it up when we were talking about that habit where you listen to somebody. Because she has so many products now, people who are obsessed with her and her content, their entire podcast app is all of her content. And so it's like Apple Podcasts become, Andrea Crowder's space, like for her, like her people that buy everything she has. Now, when she said that, she was like, it fills their feed. And I was like, oh shit. Like, again, users blowing us away where it's like, I never even thought of that. And you can just see, especially with podcasting, the branding of it, right? The like visual aspect of it taking over the entire thing, the only thing you listen to. So she'll get people that send her screenshots and it's like, oh yeah, I open my podcast player, I'm listening to Andrea, right? Like that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here.
Powerful.
And think about it from Kajabi's perspective. You have to log in and click on these all things. And it's doesn't feel like that. It's not the same. There's so much more effort to get to that thing. And that's what she said in that episode too. She's like, we just want our people to get access as quick as possible. Obviously, we don't want it to be shared and all the things, but like there's so many other barriers when there's missing passwords and like they lose login information. And like you don't have that with Hello Audio because it's a link that dies and ends up in their player. And then it's there. It's theirs. And they get to have it. And so there's magic in that from a connection and intimacy perspective, because it makes you actually feel that much closer to the person too, I think. That because there's not those barriers in place.
I have to say this, and I almost forgot to say this, but I have a client who is a hypnotherapist, and I've started talking about this a lot recently. And we were mapping out her podcast, and I'm very like off the cuff, like I'm gonna go head in the closet or head wherever and like record when I'm thinking of it, whatever. She was talking about how she scripts out her entire episodes, and I was like, girl, why are you scripting out these whole episodes? Like that seems like a lot of work. And she said, no, because as a hypnotherapist, I understand the power of audio, and I do not want to say anything out of step, like out of line, because she understands like how the audio gets into people's psyche and stuff like that. I was like, from a podcaster perspective, that's really cool and also a little bit scary, but like we're literally out here.
But I feel that
people.
like, oh yeah, that's real. Like actually, 100%.
Like the connection is really a lot more than
it's
than
immersive.
Any other.
It's immersive because like as of right here, we're recording and I have like noise canceling headphones on and like it's like I hear you and like it's like different than a phone. Yeah, it's like the spatial like audio piece of it and the immersiveness of like I'm walking around, but you're like quote unquote in my head. It doesn't feel like you're in my head when I'm looking at a video. It feels like there's separation between us. But when you make it directly and there's no barrier, there is some different stuff happening there for sure.
It is.
I'm not like a neuroscientist or anything, but there has to be.
She was talking about that and I was just like, wow, that's very powerful to know as someone who uses audio. There definitely is something to that. Okay,
You got to
so
have her as a bonus where she teaches people how to
I know. I'm like,
script content or something.
here, yeah, I'm gonna teach you how to hypnotize your people to buy from you in your
Why not?
That's so funny. Okay, so obviously I want everybody to go and listen to your podcast, and we'll link that in the show notes, and I'll give you a chance to tell us where, to find you. But one last question is, what is next for Hello Audio?
I'm like the worst at this because it's like, should I go in my Slack channel? What am I allowed to say? Right? Like, 'cause I'll be promising something and then Dev is like, yo, we're like months out
Stop.
from that. Um, no, I do know what we are very close to launching and we were working on at the end of last year, and it just has been getting pushed a little bit further than we wanted it to. So we're going to have built-in AI helping out in Hello Audio, which is going to be really helpful, I think, again, to help people move past some of the stuff that they don't need to spend a lot of time on. But even past that, like the first stage is kind of like what you're going to expect, descriptions and show notes and timestamps and titles and all the things. But then like our next level vision is like, okay, we're teaching people how to build audio products. Like, let's write a sales page that is based on the content that happens in the shows. So it's a little different than per episode, which is like most of the kind of podcasting AI tools out there.
Yeah.
So we're always thinking about like, how can we make it easier for our, users to get this done as fast as possible. And then we are updating to where it's getting a whole facelift. I think that's like what I'm really excited about as well is we've been running Hello Audio with our design, and I'm doing air quote skills. We're not product people. We aren't trained in that kind of stuff. And in the early days, it was like just, the fact that we're not listener facing is helpful to us. Like our users don't care what it looks like. Is it easy to use? Like, let's just get it out there. But we're making it easier. We're making it cleaner. And so we're super excited about that. But those things are coming out. I mean, we're like, it's probably going to be, I think we actually start testing next week. So a couple weeks from now. So by the time this is live, we might be announcing it. There might be emails going out because I think we're going live relatively quickly. But if you listen to this, that's coming. And folks who are current users will kind of know about that first for sure. Then when I get into like bigger vision, that's just more like, here's what's exactly coming. Our bigger vision and something that we hope to be working on before the end of the year. I'm also going on maternity leave. I have a baby coming in May. So, it's definitely going to be a little bit slower in some respects, because two of the co-founders are a part of that child's life. But we're going to get all the things in motion, hopefully. But we really want to build an app that allows you to record the audio really quickly and send it into Hello Audio. So most of the people that, record from their phones are using something like voice memo, which is cool. But it's not super easy to get into Hello Audio. So our like most base level that we want to create is like a recording tool, which would be like, I can record this really quick. And then you literally in a drop down say what tool, what feed to send it to. And I think that's going to be huge for people. And so we're going to work on building that out, this year, and hopefully get input, of course, from our users. But I think that is, as long as we stay focused on like, how can we save our business owners time? How can we make them stand out in the market? Like, how can we help them innovate and be creative? Those are the things that are at the top of our feature builds. And then, of course, there's a bunch of like little stuff here and there that either you see in other products that we don't have yet, or there's things that we want to be able to do that other people haven't done yet either. So we do have some of those too. So those are kind of the big stuff.
I feel like you have me. I feel like I am the person in mind for the record from the phone app.
There's a lot of you guys. Yeah.
It's just like, I see Angie. She's always talking about grabbing her phone and going in the closet.
Always in the closet, Angie.
Always in the closet. Now I don't even have a closet big enough to go in my little tiny apartment.
We're going to have your face when we're like building it. Just
like
there on our
Angie in the closet. A matter of fact, I'm going to roll out a closet chair for podcasting. Here's the chair. Inspired by Angie. Here's your little closet cubby. for your podcasting. Here's the chair with the attached mic, like everything all set for you. Yep. Oh, that's so funny. Okay. Thank you so much for being here, Lindsay. This is such a treat to kick off Private Podcast Week, which I love. I love talking about it. I love that people are still, it feels weird that people are still like, what's a private
What is
podcast?
it? Yeah.
I'm like, how do you not know? So like that's inspired me to talk about it again and really, help people build this out. And so just let everyone know where to find you. Obviously, I'm obsessed with you. So I will, everyone who starts a private podcast, I send right to Hello Audio's. Like, do not look anywhere else. This is where we're going. But tell us all where, we can find you and connect with you guys.
Yeah. You brought it up earlier. I think the easiest place to connect is our Facebook group. Even if you're not a user yet, it's not like it's gated in that way, shape, or form. But head on over to Hello Audio Community on Facebook. I think if you actually type in helloaudio.community as a URL, it'll take you to that Facebook link. That's a good one. We're a little more active on Instagram because I'm repurposing our not video into Reels. I record us, but I don't put the whole recording on YouTube. But yeah, so we're over on Instagram. We can, answer questions there. And then our public podcast, which I am loving hosting. I'm loving talking with everyone. Angie was one of our early guests, immediate, person I thought of when I wanted to reach out. And so that's called Launch Your Private Podcast. And that can be found in your favorite podcast player of choice. And we drop a new episode every Wednesday. So we got some good stuff lined up. Some stuff now we're getting into. Lindsay doesn't even know who these people are. So that's saying something. We're there I feel like, I don't know. I've been around a long time. I've made a lot of connections. I like meeting people and hanging out with people online. And so I'm getting into the point where it's like, I remember the early days of Hello Audio. I knew every person that was signing up. And now I don't know who any of these people are. And then you'll get the random Danielle Laporte, or who's the guy that's a Twitter guy, James Krause. He does creator stuff, Jay Krause, I think, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, they're on Hello Audio. I fangirl when I see their email address come through. Not quite so much Danielle Laporte. She had a big falling out in MySpace.
I know.
Yeah, she was canceled. She's back. I don't really know what she's doing, but she's a Hello Audio user. So, hey, respect. She's making good choices nowadays.
She's making great choices.
So if you want to Google Danielle Laporte and controversy 2019, 2018, when even was it? I don't even know.
Okay, we will put all the links and stuff in the show notes. So I appreciate you being here so much. And everybody go stalk Lindsay. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for doing this with me.
Thanks, Angie.
Hey, if you enjoyed the show, head over to podcastthatpays.com to get started on your way to creating a podcast that pays. And don't forget to follow this show and take a screenshot that you were listening and tag me on Instagram at Angie M. Jordan. I'd love to meet you and show you some love over there. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Let's get this money.